Today I will discuss 5 budget decks that are mostly commons and rares. There's the odd epic card here and there when needed, but in most cases you already have these epic cards as they appear in the pre-made starter decks, and there's almost no champions. These decks are budget versions of competitive counterparts, and I will even throw in a few suggestions on how you can upgrade the decks discussed once your budget increases. One deck doesn't actually need an upgrade and is used by many highly ranked players, even though it's extremely budget. Stay tuned to find out what deck this is. This deck consists of almost a 50-50 split of Freyord and Bilgewater and is themed around the aggro playstyle like many others in this video. It has a higher than average number of spells, sitting at 18. This deck is different from many other Elusive decks as it fully utilizes the new Plunder keyword. As you should be dealing damage to the Nexus fairly easily, it will be easy to activate Plunder. Some cards that take advantage of this include Shared Spoils and Pilfered Goods. This deck aims around buffing units as much as possible with cards like Omen Hawk and Starlit Seer. As there are so many spells in the deck, it will fully utilize Starlit Seer's ability, which buffs the top card in your deck with 1 power and health each time you activate a spell. There are many permanent buffs like Pocket Aces and Take Heart, as well as being a number of temporary buffs like Elixir of Iron and Fury of the North. Braum is one of the champions that you get in the pre-made decks and will be another target for your buff cards, as he can constantly regenerate his health to survive battle after battle. If you buff his power, additionally he will start dealing damage as well as blocking. As this deck is very spell heavy, use cards like Zap Sprayfin and Slippery Wave Rider to take advantage of a toon to keep your spell mana topped up. Citrus Courier will help you massively in the endgame. Plunder will be easy to activate as elusive cards can't be blocked. Use Citrus Courier's Rally to help you go in for another wave of elusive combat, and there's a high chance you'll be able to win the game off that. Replace Black Market Merchant and Abyssal Eye with more Zap Spray Fins and Fizz to help make this deck even more competitive once you have the budget. This is a standard mono Demacia playstyle deck. It is mid-range, so you try and own the board with lots of units and win via battle trades. It will be strong against aggro decks, but weak against control and elusive. Almost all of the cards have a cost of mana 4 or less. There's 29 followers, 10 spells, and 1 champion in the form of Garen. This deck should have a strong early game with Fleet Feather Tracker and Bright Steel Protector, and it should help you ramp nicely to that mid-game peak. Use Fleet Feather Tracker's Challenger to selectively take down solid early game followers with 2 health, and Bright Steel's Protector to shield followers to leave your side of the field fairly full. The deck needs to be mono to take advantage of Vanguard Bannerman's Allegiance effect, which buffs all other allies with 1 power and health. Your early game should have left you with many units still on the board, so this can optimally use Vanguard's effect to buff a number of allies. New high-powered Demacia cards in the form of Grizzled Ranger and Loyal Badger Bear can provide you with a nice transition to mid-game. Grizzled Ranger provides great value at 4 mana, and with both him and Loyal Badger with 4 power, you can provide some nice damage too. If the game starts to reach late game, use Radiant Guardian to keep your Nexus healthy, and Shipfia the Bold to lead the charge for a brutal finish with a full board. Additionally, Judgment, one of the early epic cards you have access to, should help you wipe out opponents' board easily if used on one of the buffed up units thanks to cards like Laurent Bladekeeper and Vanguard Bannerman. To develop the deck further, add more Citria the Bold. Similar style decks usually run 2 or 3 of these once your budget increases. Laurent Protege can be replaced by Fiora as well once you have access to more champions. This is the deck you've been waiting for, the Noxus Piltover and Zorn Burn deck. This deck does not actually need any champions or epics. It is a ready-made deck and arguably one of the best in the game at the moment. If you like a quick, dangerous and aggressive style of play, I've got very good news for you. As you can see, 17 of the 40 cards have a mana cost of 2, with no cards having a cost over 5. I want to point out that this is a very high level competitive deck, and it isn't actually the budget version of a deck, it just so happens to have no epics or champions and be extremely budget. Burn refers to spells and other effects doing damage rather than actual attacks themselves. Early units such as Legion Saboteur and Boom Crew Rookie can start the Nexus damage process early. After this, you'll quickly shift into more spell-based damage through cards like Get Excited and a new card, Noxus Favor. If one of your followers is about to die through blocking, use Noxus Favor to sacrifice it in an exchange for free Nexus damage. This way, as the unit you sacrifice would have died anyway, this is a win-win as you can deal damage to opponents and the attack won't go through. Imperial Demolitionist and Crimson Disciple work hand in hand together. Use Demolitionist's effect on Crimson Disciple as a really easy way of dealing 4 damage to the opponent's Nexus. Cards like Decimate can be used in the mid-game to finish off the Nexus, which should hopefully be on its last legs at this stage. Note that Decimate is a slow spell and cannot be used in combat like the rest of the spells in the deck, which are either fast or even burst in Transfusion's case. Watch out though, as I wouldn't be surprised if Boom Crew Rookie and Legion Grenadier receive a nerf in the future. Use this deck whilst you can. Even though this is an aggro deck, it focuses primarily on a more late to mid finish, with more cards costing around 3 or 4 than the traditional aggro decks. It's likely to be strong against combo decks, and due to the Ionia support spells, it will hold up against mid-range decks a lot better than other elusive decks. So this is primarily an Ionia deck, but features some key support cards from Freljord. Elixir of Iron is a great all-round heal card, and Omen Hawk synergizes perfectly with King Cow Wayfinder, which I'll discuss in a little bit. This is another Allegiance card, which relies on almost all your cards belonging to the same region in order to activate. King Cow Wayfinder's effect pulls out 2 1-cost allies from your deck if the top card in your deck is Demacia, which is 34 out of 40 in this deck's case. The effect will either bring out Omen Hawks or Navori Blade Scout, which both have effects that activate when summoned. Omen Hawk will buff the 2 top allies with 1 power and health, whereas Navori Blade Scout will get Elusive on the round it's summoned. This brings out a nice twist to the conventional Elusive buff decks, as it utilizes owner tools which can stall the game and help you reach later parts of the game that you would otherwise. Jeweled Protector can help buff your cards in the later game for those crucial endgame trades. Windfarer Hatchling is your finisher card, which gives all other allies 2 power and 2 health the round it is summoned. If you want to make this deck more competitive, I would suggest at least 2 copies of this card, running only 2 of the Jeweled Protector instead. This deck is a Noxus-orientated spin-off from the Spider starter deck with a few new cards to help bump it up. As you can see, there's a massive 31 cards with a mana cost of 3 or below, so this game is one of the most early game heavy decks you'll find. The deck has extra Legion Rearguards, Legion Saboteurs, and Precious Pets for a stronger Swamp style early game. The cards all have effects and keywords that will fit in line with the aggressive playstyle you're going for. You'll be trying to rush down the game as early and fast as possible, seeking to close the game as quickly as possible. In the mid game, you'll be looking to swarm the board with Brood Awakening, with cards like Crawling Sensation also in the deck to help supplement the number of spiders you have on the board. Unlike the starter deck, the spiders in this deck are used offensively rather than simply blockers like the starter. Your big finish will involve a leveled up Elise, causing buffed up spiders to cause a lockdown on the board. Use Decisive Maneuver to minimize the number of blockers and buff your army further. This board flooding offensive style suits crowd favorite who relies on a full board to take advantage of his ability to the max. If you're struggling to close the game, Darius will be on hand to help close it. Hopefully, by this stage, your spiders would have got the Nexus to 10 health or below, so he should level up instantly and use his Overwhelm, like crowd favorite, to finish off the enemy. An easy way of upgrading this deck would involve replacing Darius with Draven to push for that aggro early game even harder through the use of his quick attack and spinning axe abilities. Hopefully this video has given you a good introduction to some starter decks you can easily make on Legends of Runeterra, with a few suggestions on how you can eventually upgrade these once you become more familiar with the game. As always, please like and subscribe as this really drives me to make more content, and thank you very much for listening. See you next time.